Hey everybody, Jim Ingersoll here. How are you doing? It's wonderful to have you guys along. We really appreciate all of our success listeners, and we've got another great show for you today that you're gonna love because it's gonna be very probably a little bit colorful and pretty entertaining, I would say as well. With my guest who I've known really a long time. Hey, I want to. I also want to shout out to Mike Kane. He sent me a message about where he's been listening to my podcast recently, and he was on his way to Yankee Stadium the other day, and he was listening to my podcast. I'm a huge Yankees fan, Mike. I know you've done some amazing deals, I believe, throughout Manhattan, and now you've expanded out. I'm really happy to see your success, and I love that you were listening to my podcast on the way to the Yankee game. Hey, if you're listening right now, send me an email. Tell me where you're listening. I think it would be interesting to know if you're working out, driving in your car, or what you're doing. Now, if you're driving, obviously don't send me an email right now, but jim@renovatedhousing.com. And I really appreciate everybody that listens in. We got a whole bunch of great guests coming up. And today we have Jason Bhattacharya from Richmond, Virginia. How are you doing, Jason?
Wonderful, Jim. How are you?
Good, good. I was thinking back, my first memory of you that I can kind of sort of remember was when I used to do the bus tours. And I met so many friends doing those bus tours, and you were one of them. And we were pulling up to a house on Barton Avenue in Richmond before it gentrified and became really nice. And they were literally doing a drug deal in the house, right? As we were rolling the bus up with 50 people.
Front porch.
And you got out and you chased them away or something. I mean, I don't remember exactly.
I may or may not have told them, hey, look, there's a bus full of people coming, including several cops who are off duty. Are you sure you want to be here? They opted not to be.
And they got out of there quick. Oh my gosh, so much fun. Jason, I was thinking back, you've done a really good job identifying both niche markets and timing market cycles really well. You probably haven't looked back and thought about it like I have recently, but back then you've built houses, you've rehabbed houses, you've been a landlord, you've been an investor, you've been an REO agent, you've been a builder, contractor, insurance adjuster, all these things. And I think there are riches and niches, and you're one of the people I see that's done a really good job identifying those. Let's go back 10 or 15 years, when you were young. What were you doing 10 or 15 years ago, and where were you at?
15 years ago, I just was getting into real estate. Around that time, or shortly, about 2 years into real estate, I started seeing foreclosures coming up. Yeah. So I tried to find every way to, quote, get in with the banks and get their listings. And I had some great successes there.
What did you do before real estate? How did you discover real estate and think that's something you wanted to be going after passionately right there?
I got fired from every other job I've ever had.
Of course. What were some of those jobs?
Retail management, hospitality. The last termination was CVS. I'm one of those people that is not great working for other people.
Yeah, you need the shirt that says unemployable.
That is a very accurate statement.
So you're not a great employee, but you're great. You're a great entrepreneur.
Thank you. Yes, at least I hope so.
Yeah. Did you are you from Richmond? Were you always from this area?
Born in Connecticut. Family moved here in '89. So I'm what they call a damn Yankee. I just won't go home.
Me too. We moved here from New York in '98, so I understand totally. So yeah, but once we got here, we both loved it, and Richmond's a great place to be, I believe. So then you left CVS and you started looking about, man, what am I going to do now? And you said you identified foreclosures were rising and you went into real estate?
I went into real estate because I just had to have something to do that could potentially pay the bills.
Yeah.
Bought the first house with a credit card. Nice. Door knocked, found a house, tracked them down through tax records, knocked on the door. They had their mother call me. The house was abandoned then. They they wanted to get rid of it. I wrote an offer on one of these one-page Ron LeGrand forms.
Love it.
And just went from there. I'm 15, actually about 20, that's about 18 years ago. I'm just now renovating it. So it's been vacant that long.
Mm-hmm.
I'm rather embarrassed.
Hey, okay. So do you remember how much you paid for the house?
I think it was 11,500.
What do you think all fixed up that house would sell for today?
Right. We're probably going to list it at 350.
I mean, really, right? Is there anything like real estate, Jason?
Well, they're generally considered felonies.
Yeah. So 18 years ago, you paid $11,500. You're going to fix it up and sell it for $350,000.
Hopefully.
Now, if only you had bought like 50 of those, right? Oh, well.
Hindsight is always 20/20.
Is it in an area that gentrified, or what really spiked it up for that huge growth in equity?
It's located in the Manchester area down Hull Street.
Nice.
There was an individual by the name of Harvard Cochran who was the founder of Estes Transportation. He bought and maintained hundreds of parcels of land over in one area.
Wow.
After he passed away, he left them to the Virginia Museum of Fine Arts to do with as they saw fit. They went through their process, and there's just been so much development over there, and it's really spurring that part of Richmond.
Yeah, it's on fire over there literally for sure. And we'll come back to fire in a little while. Yeah, we've talked about being fire. The market's on fire. Yeah. So okay, so you went into real estate after that, and where was your license held? Like, where did you hang it? Like, who was your broker way back then?
I went through a couple different firms, Countrywide Realty, then to Remax.
Yeah.
I went through two different Remax franchises, and then eventually opened up my own, which is Ardent Properties.
And then in between that, you were with, I think, Joanne.
Correct.
And then Refine. That was quite a ride, right?
That was interesting.
And we won't talk about Carter on this one because he's had quite an interesting last 5 years as well.
I know nothing about that.
Yeah. So then you went out and you did your own broker, and you started, and then I started buying lots of foreclosures from you as well, right?
Correct.
And I mean, did you sell literally like probably over 1,000 foreclosures when that was what the market was giving?
Between the buy side and the sell side, that's pretty close to accurate. Yes.
How was it working for the asset managers back then? I mean, that was great business. That's all the market had, that and short sales. People forget if you didn't go through that entire cycle. I wish I'd go back and rebuy all those at today's.
Absolutely.
Right? But we can't. But I did buy quite a few from you. How was it working back then for like those asset managers and listing all those foreclosures?
Chaotic. Very task oriented. One of the things I learned doing REOs, in one of the areas I think I could have done better, was having the systems and processes. I treated the asset managers as relationships, which they were, but they also had a job to do, which was disposing of increasing amounts of inventory in decreasing amounts of time. The business was phenomenal. The people were wonderful. But then at some point, when there were less foreclosures, there were more people trying to sell them, and the market just evaporated. And the asset managers were the banks in general, were putting downward pressure on commissions, increased demands on agents, and in my opinion, was no longer a feasible market to stay in.
In the end there, I remember like Fannie Mae started doing their own flips, right?
Fannie did, Freddie did.
Yeah.
What they were doing is, I believe Sarah Palin said, lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
They're going in, painting with paint, carpet, vinyl, cheap kitchen cabinets. If there was a major defect, they'd paint right over it. So I've seen.
Right.
But it was lipstick on a pig. They were trying to recover their asset dollars. They saw investors such as yourself going in there, putting $20,000-$30,000 in and making 50, 60 or whatever the return was. They thought they could do it as well. And for a short run they did, but like most quasi-government entities, they were trying to pinch the price, ignoring the quality because they're 3,000 miles away,
Right.
and it just wasn't the same.
There must have been a lot of work to try to coordinate all those aspects of listing all those foreclosures, from keeping the grass mowed to keeping vandals out to
Running off drug dealers.
The entire process, right? It isn't like a normal listing.
No, it's not. That's part of where the organization comes in. You have to do. They demand weekly checks. Depending on the bank, you may have to front all the expenses, such as the grass cutting, the electric bills, the repair bills, any delinquencies. I've been asked to pay off liens before. So you have to have a pretty substantial hoard of cash to meet some of their needs. Now, things may have changed. It's been a few years since I've done it. But they expect weekly checks. And when you have 2 or 3 properties, that's not a big deal. But when you have 50, 80, 120, 200, you're employing staff. If you're not employing staff, you're working sun up to sun up.
Right.
It was an interesting business. I mean, there was a lot of logistics. I learned a lot. I don't know that I'd want to go back, but it was definitely a life experience.
I can imagine. Do you remember how rapidly like the foreclosure inventory increased at the beginning and then how rapidly it decreased sort of at the end?
Very well. My first corporate client for foreclosures was HSBC.
Okay.
Never forget it. This is at the point of my life where I was fired, broke, penniless. I could barely afford to put gas in the car. Mm-hmm. I kept the laptop near my bed at the time just to see if I ever got an email so I could respond immediately. About 7 a.m., give or take, I saw an alert message from Equator, what's Equator now, saying task, assign, accept, or reject listing. Wow. Accepted it, had zero clue what I was doing, totally screwed the whole thing up. But the asset manager, I think, took pity on me, gave me a couple more shots. I sent her a thank you card, and within a week, I went from 1 listing to 5. Then within 2 weeks, I went from 5 to, I think, 15. And wow. At one point, I was carrying 84 HSBC listings at one time.
Holy mackerel. So as a lot of entrepreneurs, you're not afraid of that risk. You're not afraid of like going over the cliff, building the parachute on the way down, so to speak. And you're confident enough that you could figure all that out, even if you made a mistake at the beginning and you valued that relationship and built that quickly into a business.
I try to avoid driving off of cliffs. I feel pretty confident in my ability to maintain a relationship and network effectively. That's part of the reason I think I did well in foreclosures at the time I did it. But that's about it. I mean, just I don't want to say build the parachute as I'm jumping off, but I get you.
But I like the fact that you were on top of it and you had the laptop by your bed and you needed action and then you got it and you responded like quickly. You didn't like think. You're like, I'm going to go ahead and take that listing and then figure it out as you go.
Foreclosures were a complete different animal. Right. It was nowhere near the same as a regular listing. If you list a house, you sign a contract, and we have certain expectations.
Sure.
You may call me, hey, Jason, how is my listing doing? Banks, every week, every day, every month, you had to do a report. Every 90 days, you had to do another valuation. It was complete task-driven. One of the areas that I tried to do well in was just learning and researching everything I could, spending time on the internet. If I didn't know an answer, trying to find it before. With the last person I asked was the client, so I could at least appear that I knew what I was doing.
Sure. You remember, I mean, it's easy to forget, but back then the value of houses was dropping pretty rapidly, pretty quick. You recall that time period?
I do. It's the 90-day value then was not how high it's going to go. It's how much lower it's going to go.
It's like figuring out like you're free falling and finding out when you're gonna hit. It's really it was a tough period of time for sure, but you did a really good job exploiting that as really a niche business for that time frame. You look back and think you sort of timed that niche pretty well.
I think I got lucky. I really do.
That was my question. Did you feel like it was all your blood, sweat, and tears, or did you get a little bit lucky? You felt a little bit lucky on the timing.
I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
I was put into a place where I found these websites. I'm trying to think. There was a blogging site back then before blogging was really even a thing. Active Rain, that's it. And from there, I just learned from people that were doing it. I found the sites. I found people that did it. I decided to at least throw the name in there. But there were at the time probably 4,000 or 5,000 agents that would have loved to have a fraction of those listings. So there was a lot of luck that started it, combined with just the willingness to try to find answers and work hard. I mean,
you always hear me say your network becomes your net worth, and I think you've done a good job building out your networks and getting around the right people. I mean, you always come to my boot camp, for instance, and no matter where you're at, you seem to like get around people that can help you move up. So I think you've done a good job in that area as well.
Thank you.
So as the foreclosures were then starting to decline, did you start to get nervous again? Like that is, I mean, you did like several hundred listings and all of a sudden they're starting to evaporate pretty quickly.
Yes, I did. So the banks started selling portfolios, selling distressed notes to the note investors. They started kicking the inventory down for whatever reasons they did. And towards the end of it, I started a construction company. And as we discussed earlier, I saw the niche with these banks doing horrible repairs. The contractors charging exorbitant amounts of money, and I just thought I could do it better. So towards the end of the ramping down of the foreclosures, I was getting into the construction game. So it's kind of, I don't want to say I had my exit plan already there, but I had a second business going to supplement the first.
Do you think having a side hustle like that is good when you're in real estate in general? Knowing there's market shifts and cycles and things?
I think that's a side hustle can take you away from your primary focus. Mm-hmm. I started losing focus in real estate, partially because of construction. But then again, I had niched into REOs and they were just gone. I think side hustles in real estate, some people sell, I think Lala Row is still a thing. People do that, but it also helps network. We're in the networking business in real estate.
We are. That's for sure. I agree. Okay. So then I got my contracting license about the same time I got Class A and started going that route, and I ended up letting my license go. But you kept yours and then figured out what you wanted to do in the construction side. How did that journey go? Like you got your license, you started doing these REOs, but then that evaporated. What did you do next, and how did you figure out where to go from there?
So as I got out of REO's listing side, there were still other banks that were repairing properties. So my construction company was gearing towards them. So I was doing renovations for banks such as Wells Fargo, Freddie Mac, and they were keeping us pretty busy. Let's see. And after that, I moved from that to doing 203Ks for homeowners. But one thing just always seems to lead to another.
It does when you're ambitious and you're always looking for new opportunity. I agree. So you transitioned, started doing some 203K loans, and then how did you like that? What did you not like about that? And what did you sort of do next?
I did the 203Ks. I did the home style. I did a lot of those renovations.
Yeah.
What I liked is we were able to start some projects from the ground up and do phenomenal projects.
Nice.
The downside is there were a lot more people attempting to get into that marketplace, other contractors, putting a downward pressure on on work, on pricing, on quality. Homeowners not knowing the difference. Homeowners looking at the bottom line saying this guy is 15, 20, 30% cheaper. So, I mean, that's one of the things I didn't like. And then, of course, there's certain legalities just of the overall nature of the 203Ks and the renovation programs. But all in all, that too was a great phase in the career of my business, or the path of my business.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And it's a lot different to work on a vacant house for a bank than it is an occupied, a home that somebody's going to eventually move into.
Lord, yes.
Right?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, there's selections, there's paint colors, there's cabinets, whatever else, I would imagine.
And that's one of the challenges when dealing with homeowners.
Yeah.
They want you to some homeowners want you to quote a price. They're looking for the Lowe's thermofoil cabinets. Then when it comes time to selection, they're asking for the custom cabinets.
Right.
Doesn't happen in every case, but it does happen. Then they want to paint 3-4 different rooms, 4 different colors for the same price. I mean, these are things that had to be addressed in the beginning, and even when they were addressed, the homeowners occasionally wanted to change that.
And then you don't usually do the work yourself. You don't wear a tool belt, right? You sub?
I sub everything, or almost everything.
Yeah, me too. And so I just want to ask you, like, if we have a listener and they've got to go out there and find a contractor who is fair, reasonable, shows up on time, and is fair with pricing and is honest. I mean, those are hard to find. Do you have any tips for finding decent guys to work with?
Are they trying to be a GC, or are they trying to GC the work themselves, or
just a real estate investor looking for some subs?
Check references. Don't always go to the lowest bidder. Ask to see a job site or two if they're able to show it. Sometimes they can't. And then figure out where they do the work. If they're doing work for tract builders, then they're going to be cheaper than most of the other guys. But
good point.
But even if they're cheaper, doesn't mean they're better. And if they're putting up 20 houses a week, they're probably not paying the same attention as the guy that's putting up 1 house a month.
Right.
But I mean, if a newer, experienced investors such as yourself, you've got Bill, you've done it yourself, you know how to QC your work. A lot of the newer guys don't. There are companies out here that will assist you in GCing the project. They'll come on a 4-fee basis. There are experienced contractors that will that'll help oversee the job. I mean, partner with people that can help. One of the most expensive mistakes are the ones you make. The cheapest ones are the ones somebody else makes.
It's a good tip, good takeaway. Thank you. So then that sort of led you in your journey to Old Dominion Public Adjusters, right? You found that niche and you really started to go deep with it.
There was one other stop. Imagine that. Through the construction company, we started doing mitigation, fire, water, flood, mold, tree damage, etc. Mom had a water loss in her house. She called us. We were able to dry it. I mean, things just happened. We had somebody coming in town to help us with the insurance side, and we went and did Mom's house first. Then from there, I learned a tremendous amount from doing the job. Then I started doing more and more mitigation, which we still do. So if somebody has a tree that hits their house, or a house fire, or a pipe burst, we can do the drying, the demolition, and the rebuild. There's not a ton of people that can do all of it in-house. A lot of the companies that are out here do the mitigation or the rebuild. There are some that do both, but not as – there's more companies that do one or the other than that do both. So have been doing that. Currently, I'm going for the Triple Masters, which is less than last count 450 people in the world that have that. Mm-hmm. Which is fire, water, textile. But I'm a student of I enjoy the education. I enjoy learning the why. So from the water, fire, restoration, we've done those, to seeing how the insurance companies handle claims. is why I started Old Dominion Public Adjusters.
So did you see like insurance companies that really didn't want to cover the claim properly? Because I've had a couple of fires and rentals. I've had, different deals you and I have talked about, but I've made it through that process okay and done pretty well. But there are some people that are not able to do the work like I can also, and they sort of get taken advantage of.
Yes, there's generally two reasons that occurs. The first reason is the adjuster or the insurance company is a thief. They're trying to take your policy money and not pay you the benefits that you paid out for. Or the other one is there are also adjusters that want to do the right thing. They just don't know what that is. They don't have the experience in contracting. They don't have the experience in mitigation. These guys have been in the business for 10 years and they started with a 3-day class. Their weekly water cooler meetings are talking about how dishonest contractors are. Right. There's a huge disconnect in the trust between adjusters and qualified contractors. The adjusters typically almost always say, "Oh, I've got somebody that can do it cheaper." Of course you can. But there are other adjusters who say, "Look, tell me why you need to do this and why it's going to cost that much. And if I think it's fair, I'll approve it."
Mm-hmm. So if somebody has a fire in a house or a tree hits it or whatever else happens, the process normally is you call the insurance company, you open a claim, then the adjuster comes out and they'll go through it and they'll give you typically a written estimate, right? That they'll cover minus all your deductible and you get an amount at the bottom.
Correct. So the typical path of a loss is you have a loss, you discover the loss, you call your insurance company. Hopefully you call us as for the contracting or the mitigation. Then you call your insurance company and say, "Hey, we've hired a mitigation company. You do have a duty under most policies or under every policy that I've seen to prevent further damage." Right. So the path is you call your claim in, you start mitigation to the best of your ability. An insurance adjuster comes out. It could be 24 hours. It could be 2 weeks, just depending on the time frame. Sorry. Let me just turn this thing. It could be 2 weeks, depending on the time frame, and it really depends what's going on. If it's a water loss, it's treated one way. If it's a fire loss, it's treated another. If it's a tree through your house, your immediate need is to get the tree out of the house, tarp the roof. You don't want to prejudice the insurance adjuster's ability to inspect. Yeah. Meaning if you had a house fire, you go in there, then you gut the cabinets, you pull all your flooring, you demo the house before the adjuster can come out, he really can't see what happened. So then the adjuster will write up a scope. If it's an IA, independent adjuster, they generally do not have authority to settle. They'll write up an estimate and submit it to your insurance company. If it's a staff or somebody who works, say, at Farmers, they'll come out, they can write a check sometimes on site. They write up an estimate. Then if you're bringing us in as a public adjuster, we'll look at that estimate and we'll say, "Hey, here are the items they missed." Or if you say, "Hey, if you have a problem and you feel that your adjuster is just not trying to do the right thing, or you need somebody to act on your behalf," that's when you call a public adjuster in.
Okay. And I think the timing of this podcast is really good because we're right around the 1st of July and we're coming right into hurricane season, at least in Virginia and down the coast to Florida and the Gulf and all that. So if somebody has the unfortunate damage, like if a hurricane comes through and a tree falls on your house, like it did at mine, Jason, like 15 years ago, and it was bad. I had to get a crane to get the tree off my house and all that. If that happens to somebody and they want to reach out to you for help, what's the best way for them to do so?
Shoot me an email. That's generally the fastest way to get me. Jason at olddominionpa.com. Or Jason at plumlineconstruction.com. It really depends on what help they need. shoot me an email, tell me what's going on, shoot me a message on Facebook. Both pages are on Facebook. Shoot us a message. Tell me what's going on. And even if I don't work with you, I try to help out people to the best of my ability. I truly believe that people need a voice. People need an advocate. And when dealing with the insurance companies, most of the time people don't get it. I mean, as a contractor, I've seen insurance claims underpaid 3 to 5 times. So, and I mean, that's real money. That's real money that goes into that house. I mean, and as a public adjuster, we've seen returns higher than that.
Okay, sounds good. Hopefully nobody has that problem. None of our listeners ever have a tragedy or whatever. And I just want to remind all of our listeners to double check all your insurance. I do think it's really important. I've seen too many real estate investors let their insurance either lapse due to non-payment or buy a house cash or with a private lender and forget to get their insurance altogether. And I've heard of some tragic stories around those areas. So if you're buying without a bank, which I love to do, don't forget your insurance. Or if you're buying it in an IRA, self-directed IRA, whatever it is.
On that, Jim, when people buy insurance, not all insurance policies are created equal. There's something called an ACV policy and an RCV policy. We're working on a fire for one of our shared friends right now. An ACV policy is the actual cash value. So it's what you have a television. The television costs $1,000. It breaks and it's 4 years old on a 5-year lifespan. Insurance company is going to give you $200 for that television. You cannot replace it. But if you have an RCV policy, they'll give you $200 up front and $800 in the back. You do have to claim that recoverable depreciation once the work is done. But that could be 70% of your claim gone for a very small premium difference.
So the RCV is better than the...
Absolutely.
Does it cost more or is it just... Okay.
To put into perspective, we looked at a fire policy on a claim we're working. I think his premium was about $300 for an ACV. For an RCV comparable, he probably would have been about $650, $700, and that's for a good policy. Now, the difference between those two policies in terms of recovery dollars is probably about $25,000.
Wow. Okay, great tips. You've given a lot of great tips, and I've enjoyed your story very much. I also want to thank you, Jason. You've always come to our boot camps, and I really appreciate that. Our next one is in February. It seems like a little ways off, but you're always one of the first people who always registers. And if our listeners want to register now, you go to dealmakerlive2020.com. Jason, tell me, why is it you come to the boot camp every year?
Because of the value that's added. I get to meet with the first one. I learned what a self-directed Roth was. I had no idea about tax-free income, tax-free earnings. I was just a guy buying a rental house as I could. No strategy other than, oh, squirrel, there's a house. I'll buy it. Yay!
I'll take that one. Yeah.
But now there's a focus.
Good.
To the IRAs. I mean, that's one of the huge things. Every year I learned something new. I mean, you always bring in top talent, everywhere from the infamous John Heyer to the wonderful Mary Hart, to Mr. Landlord, to everybody that you bring in. They're top-notch talents, and if you can get a couple great ideas and you implement one a year, your income's going to grow. And also, I'm a huge believer in education, and as you said, net worth. Yep. I mean, the people you hang out with truly have an effect on your life, whether you realize it or not.
Yeah, and I want to thank you. It's been fun watching you, Jason, for a long time. Like I said, the first memory I have of you was the drug deal on Bart, with the bus rolling up and you like getting rid of those guys off the. For a long time I've been able to watch you like develop different niche markets. You've become a serial entrepreneur, and you've done a really good job exploiting what the market gives. So congratulations on all of that. Old Dominion Public Adjusters, If you want to contact Jason, it's Jason at Old Dominion OldDominionPA.com, correct?
Correct.
All right. Jason, I want to thank you for being my guest today. It's been a lot of fun catching up, and look forward to seeing you in person again sometime soon.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me. Great talking to you.
And all of you guys that share our content, hit the like button, reactions, comments, reviews, and emails telling me where you're listening to this, whether you're working out or cooking food or on your way to Yankee Stadium. You guys all rock, and we greatly appreciate every one of you guys. I hope you guys make some deals and get a lot out of today's call.